Welcome all around the world to Silverstone for round 10 of the 1996 Formula One World Championship, the British Grand Prix. I know that there are people in Australia, in Canada, Jacques Villeneuve's home country, in South Africa, and many, many other places, all watching this race as it unfolds. It offers a fascinating scenario to us, with the two Williams drivers who have dominated the season, because already they are on the grid, the front row of the grid, for the fifth time. Damon Hill or Jacques Villeneuve have jointly occupied the front row of the grid for those 5 races, and Villeneuve was in pole position in Australia. Mika Häkkinen, well up, it's the highest he's been. Jean Alesi only 5th on the grid in the Benetton, very disappointing, and his teammate Berger is in 7th position. Martin Brundle behind his teammate, and Coulthard is behind his teammate, as is Eddie Irvine. Schumacher 3rd, Irvine in 10th position. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is ahead of Johnny Herbert, both in Saubers, and Katayama, unusually, very unusually, in the Tyrrell, is ahead of his Finnish teammate Mika Salo. Jos Verstappen is driving the footwork Hart. Parnis and Deniz are well down in the Ligier. They don't have any testing here at Silverstone, and that has delayed them. And there are only 20 starters for the British Grand Prix, because the 240 Ford-powered cars of the Brazilian team failed to qualify. They're having all sorts of financial problems and were not able to get their engine supply finalised until qualifying yesterday, by which time they had not done any setting up work at all, and there was really never any question of them qualifying, and sure enough, they did not do so. So just about 2.5 minutes now to the start of the formation lap. And of course, nothing ever happens on the formation lap. It's just a parade lap round to the grid, unless, of course, you are Michael Schumacher at the French Grand Prix, when the unthinkable, the unbelievable happened. A piston collapsed in the engine, and the double world champion Michael Schumacher failed ignominiously even to start the race. Well, I spent the whole of Thursday morning with Schumacher and with Eddie Irvine and with Jean Todt, the Ferrari team director, to say that they were not sad and disheartened would not be true. They are, and they were, but they say they put in hand the necessary changes to the procedures at Ferrari to make sure, they hope, that there is no repetition of what happened so embarrassingly to their team in Canada and France. And they will have been straining every nerve to avoid it here, because Luca de Montezemolo, the boss of Ferrari, and even more important, Giovanni Agnelli, the head of Fiat, were here to show solidarity with the team on Thursday, and that is a very important move. Ferrari is all important in Italy, and they will not want anything to go wrong here.
As we look at these cars, you'll see lots of odd little shapes of wings and aerodynamic surfaces on them, and this is because downforce is just desperately important with these cars. If you take a corner that a normal road car can take at 60 miles an hour, a Formula One car can take that corner at 130 miles an hour. But take all the wings off, take the downforce off, and despite the tyres and suspension, it would only do something like 85 miles an hour. So much comes from the aerodynamics. Each side of the car, you can just see it on Schumacher's, that's called a barge board. That's either side of where you might imagine his legs to be, that curved triangular shaped structure. That just stabilizes the airflow, and it's just one of various little appendages. You'll also see how high the noses of these cars are. And this is a fashion that Benetton started about 3 years ago. The driver's feet actually sit higher up than his bottom by about 6 inches, and that helps the airflow to be smooth over those front wings and allow the cars to produce more downforce. Now, they're going to be pulling away in a moment for what's called the formation lap. This is obviously not the race start. And interesting to look at the tyres. Now, you see a fine white band around the tyres of Schumacher's red Ferrari and Alesi's Benetton behind that. And that fine white band means they are new tyres. Damon Hill lights up the tyres. He's practicing his start to see what it's like there as they come around. And this is the time when they need to warm up the tyres. They're already in the blankets, but they still need to work them hard. They need to warm up the brakes. There's nothing they can do about that sitting on the grid, because until those brakes are up to 200 or 300 degrees, they won't work properly either. Sweeping through that left into the Beckett section, this is this awesome corner. There's 6 gear through that first one at 160 miles an hour, down to 5th for 130 miles an hour, that left, then the right-hander, and you can see the markings, the black markings of where the line of the cars going over and over again picks up. Longest straight here. This is the 190 miles an hour point. You see the change in colour, the darker surface. That's where it's been resurfaced there through Stowe Corner. The gravel on the outside showing you how safe Formula One is now, these big long runoff areas. Now, when we come round to the start, this is Club Corner. The start is going to be one of the most crucial parts of the race in terms of determining who is going to do what. The qualifying was desperately important, but in terms of starts, some drivers start well and some don't. Now, Damon Hill starts pretty well. The real blinding starts seem to come from British drivers. In fact, Martin Brundle will normally make up a couple of places, so he's 8th there. That might mean 6th. Johnny Herbert does well too. David Coulthard's made some absolute flyers, but the one significantly that doesn't tend to start well is Michael Schumacher, and that's not so much Schumacher. I think it's more due to the Ferrari. So you can expect, I think, to see maybe Schumacher be overhauled by a Laces, Benetton. That could be possible. Mika Hakkinen has variable starts, and as they peel around, this is this tight, twisty infield section, only about 70 miles an hour through these corners. When they come to take their places on the grid, watch for the cars apparently all following a line, and then suddenly at the last minute swerving across to one side or the other to take their final place. That's because, believe it or not, this track is only clean on the racing line. There are little bits of dust around that if you get them on the tyres, they will just lose crucial grip. So the drivers try and stay on that racing line till the very last minute before peeling off and taking their place on the grid. And that's what Damon's doing there, you see. He's moved across. Look at the track on the right. It's dark, it's black, there's more rubber there. The left-hand side is not so much. And that's why Damon lit those tyres up, tyre smoking them to get the black lines down and find some more grip.
Michael Schumacher has a new clutch in the Ferrari. He will be hoping for a better start than he's had in the past. But at the bottom of your picture, you saw Damon Hill. Alongside him, Jacques Villeneuve. It's a long wait on the front row of the grid for Damon Hill while the rest of them get into line. Look for the lights, and when all the lights go out, the race will begin. The 1996 British Grand Prix, and it is go! Good start by Villeneuve. In fact, he edges ahead, and the Benetton goes ahead, and Damon Hill is down in the 5th position with Michael Schumacher ahead of him. A terrible start for Damon Hill, a better one for Michael Schumacher, and Villeneuve has had happen to him exactly what he wanted to, and so has Jean Alesi. Villeneuve leads, Alesi is 2nd, Hakkinen is in 3rd position, Michael Schumacher is in 4th place. Pole position man Damon Hill threw it all away at the start and is down to 5th place. This is Hanger Straight, 180 miles an hour. Villeneuve already building up a gap, and Hakkinen going for 2nd place, and Villeneuve is still holding that position as Damon Hill closes up a bit on the Ferrari in front of him. But this is terrible news for Hill as Schumacher moves across and blocks the line for the Englishman. We've got a repetition now in lower places of what happened last year. Schumacher ahead of Damon Hill, and Damon has got to find a way of getting past his double world champion adversary. So, lap 1, Villeneuve, Alesi, Hakkinen, Schumacher, Hill, and then Barrichello in the Jordan Peugeot. And this is an absolutely searing opening lap by Jacques Villeneuve. Damon Hill put it across the Canadian in Montreal, won the Canadians race, and Villeneuve has made no secret of the fact that he wants to return the favour to Damon Hill by beating his teammate here at Silverstone in the British Grand Prix. So lap 1, and already Villeneuve is 1.6 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi, and Damon Hill is 4.3 seconds behind his teammate on the 2nd lap as it starts. It's a 61 lap race. You've heard earlier from Jonathan that strategy could change things, but Villeneuve is making the most of his opportunity, pulling away down the Hanger Straight, building up to 180 miles an hour, and you can see the difference in performance between the identically powered Renault V10, Williams and Benetton. It's Hakkinen 3rd, Schumacher 4th, Hill is 5th, and Barrichello is 6th.
Oh dear, poor old Damon Hill is going to be feeling very, very miserable back there in 5th place. Starting, as we said, is so desperately important, and 2 days of work honing the performance of his car, and his blistering laps yesterday are now all to nothing. He knows that this is probably... Yeah, this could well mean that Damon Hill will not win the British Grand Prix, but it's also going to give us with the most fantastic race as Hill tries to claw his way back there. There are just a few crucial tenths of a second when, as a driver, you have to get the combination of throttle, of clutch, absolutely right to get off the line. And Damon didn't quite do it, and he lost out so much. Now, what we've seen here, a couple of things that are repetitious of things we've seen before. At the the Grand Prix of Europe at Nürburgring, this is exactly again what happened to Damon Hill. He dropped back to 4th off the line, now he's back to 5th, and that did not end up as being a good race for Damon. And at the British Grand Prix last year, Jean Alesi, then driving a Ferrari, did exactly the same thing. He leapt forward to take 2nd place, and he then ended up holding up a whole queue of cars to allow, at that time, Damon Hill to move away and pull away, but this time, it's Jacques Villeneuve who's going to benefit potentially from the same thing, and Villeneuve is really piling on the pressure. 29.5, he's going to make full use of this margin he's got. Let's have a look at the start again.
So let's what's happening. Look, you see, Damon Hill is already flagging. Villeneuve goes past him. Alesi sprints up from 5th on the grid, goes past the Williams. Hakkinen comes up from the 2nd row, closes up to Villeneuve as Alesi challenges as they go into Copse Corner. But Villeneuve holds the racing line, takes the lead. Alesi 2nd. Hakkinen, a superb start from 4th on the grid up to 3rd in the race. And meantime, Michael Schumacher has gone past. We're on board with Damon Hill's car now. Pole position, Villeneuve, just look at that start. Alesi goes past, Hakkinen goes past, a dreadful start and Schumacher is out, is he out? I thought I saw smoke from his engine earlier on. I didn't dare say so because I thought he was going to be regarded as alarmist. I thought I saw a puff of smoke from the back of the Ferrari, and the dreadful embarrassment that they suffered in France is repeated in the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. This is heaping embarrassment on the Maranello team, and meantime, Villeneuve is now nearly 4 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi on lap 4, with Damon Hill having got past Michael Schumacher, not the way he would ideally have liked to get past him, because he's done so because the German car has failed and he's out of the race. But never mind, a place improvement is a place improvement. And the gap between Damon Hill now on lap 4 out of 61 and his teammate leader, Jacques Villeneuve, is a massive 6.5 seconds. As you see, Alesi, Hakkinen, Hill. Now, Hill's last lap time, 1 minute 30.2, was faster than that of Hakkinen, 1 minute 30.6. And you can see, you don't need me to tell you lap times, because you can see that Damon Hill has got the bit between his teeth now. He is going for it. He is visibly closing up on the Mercedes-Benz powered McLaren, which does not handle anything like as well as the Williams. And the question is, will Mika Hakkinen, knowing that, defer, or will he stay where he is obdurately? I suspect the latter.
So now we're with Hill, and there's no way Mika Hakkinen's going to let Damon Hill come by him. He's going to be every bit as hard a competitor as Michael Schumacher was for Hill last year. And the thing that's going to be exciting for us is that Damon Hill cannot afford to wait until the first round of pit stops, be they at lap 20 if it's a 2-stop routine, or certainly mid-distance. There comes touring into the pits Michael Schumacher. This is an absolute debacle for Ferrari, one has to say. And Damon now, and he's really going to have to try and get by Hakkinen. I think he's going to have a very tough job, to be honest. The Mercedes engine is powerful. The Williams has a little bit of a straight line speed advantage on the straight, but not enough for him to do much about it. But going back to that start, there's Jean Todt now. He is the director of the Ferrari team, and he will be feeling absolutely gutted.
What? This picture is going all around the world, and Ferrari have tried so hard in the fortnight since the British Grand Prix, since the French Grand Prix, to put their embarrassment behind them, to work harder, to develop things, to make the car more reliable. You can see by the from the eyes of the mechanics through their face masks that they are absolutely downcast. We're back again with Jacques Villeneuve on lap 5 out of 61, and he's now 5.3 seconds ahead of the flying Benetton here now of Jean Alesi. Look how close Mika Hakkinen is in the McLaren, but look how much closer Damon Hill is to Hakkinen than Hakkinen is to Alesi. In 5th position now, it's Barrichello. In 6th position is Eddie Irvine. In 7th position is Gerhard Berger. 8th is Brundle. 9th is Coulthard. And in 10th position, Heinz Harold Frentzen, followed by his Sauber teammate, and that is Herbert. And Irvine is out of the race. Oh my! And not only out of the race, but on fire. I just cannot start to imagine what is going to happen at Ferrari in terms of a post-mortem, because he's doing it in full public, in front of the gaze of the massed ranks of thousands in the main grandstand. Eddie Irvine's Ferrari joins that of Michael Schumacher. This is lap 6. Irvine goes out on lap 6. Schumacher having already gone out on lap 3. Eddie Irvine soldiering on, and John Todt walks away. His day is over, and some people may think, although they would be quite wrong to hope for it, that John Todt's career at Ferrari may be over. After the French Grand Prix, he offered his head if Italy wanted it, and a lot of Italy did, because the newspapers were clamouring for it. But back in the race, the British Grand Prix is led. Look at the gap. Villeneuve, here is Alesi, and it's 6.5 seconds. Damon Hill cannot do anything about Hakkinen. Hakkinen cannot do anything about Alesi. Barrichello is now 4 seconds in 5th position behind Damon Hill, who we ride with. Up to Bridge, the right-hander, 155 miles an hour. Down to second gear, 70 miles an hour for Prix, about the same speed around Brooklands, this second left-hander. That is Mika Hakkinen, the Finn, in the short wheelbase McLaren Mercedes. It's the same basic car, the MP4/11 is its code number, but it is the B version, the short wheelbase version, and it suits this Silverstone track a treat, because Hakkinen is now pulling away, I think, from Damon Hill, and Hakkinen is closing up on Jean Alesi. He's only 1.5 seconds behind him now. We've got the makings of a terrific battle for second place.
Well, we have indeed, but going back to that Ferrari situation, it looked to me as if maybe the problem was not actually the engine. Although we saw smoke, it could also come from hydraulics, from oil lines, because Eddie Irvine was still going hard for some time, pouring out smoke from behind, and it could well have been. Now let's have a look at Schumacher. We think that here comes Schumacher now. He's coming on to the main start finish. No, he's coming onto the main long straight at hangar, actually, through the picture we're getting. Now let's watch as he goes underneath the bridge. Now he's pulling his maximum speed of 190. He's going to be braking. No, he's lifted off now. He's looking in his mirrors. He knows he has a problem. And as he goes through Stowe Corner, he's trying to keep out of the way there and the end there. But clearly, something has gone awry with those Ferraris in the way they've been prepared. Maybe it's a component failure or something like that. The chances look extremely likely that it's the same thing on both cars. But again, with the way that Irvine kept going, it looked to me that it was not fundamentally engine. And that means it could have been transmission or it could have been an oil line. Certainly, the engine seemed to be producing power. But there's Eddie Irvine. They are just not going to believe this. They will not believe this can be happening to them. They thought that France to blow up, and that was a piston problem that Schumacher had, to blow up on the formation lap was as low as it could have been.
Now, in some ways, this race is a replay of the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Damon Hill started from pole position. His teammate Jacques Villeneuve was second. Damon had a terrible start. Villeneuve took the lead and won the race. Damon Hill only finished in 4th position. That's where he is in the British Grand Prix. He's trying so hard to improve on it by catching and getting past the McLaren Mercedes of Mika Hakkinen, but he is certainly not succeeding. We're on lap 8 out of 61. Long way to go yet. We're expecting 2 pit stops for tyres and fuel. Strategy will be just as important here as it is anywhere else. It could change the shape of the race, but meantime, Villeneuve is building the gap all the time. He's now 7.3 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi. Actually, Alesi's last lap time was marginally quicker than that of Villeneuve. He's reduced the gap to 7.258 seconds to be absolutely exact. As Damon Hill exits Abbey, comes up to Bridge, the right-hander. Mika Hakkinen in front of him. You're looking down at the complex now. So, Alesi into the left-hander at Brooklands.
Now the right-hander, the double right-hander at Luffield, he's in second position. Villeneuve has gone through. I remind you the gap was 7.25 seconds. I'll be able to tell you what it is. Well, you can see the gap between Villeneuve and Alesi there is increasing. Villeneuve is pulling out the stops. The young French-Canadian who has qualified quite badly at some of the races this year, and he deliberately set about practicing the qualifying on Friday, which was something he hadn't done before. Normally on Friday they use the sessions for setting up the car for the race, but here Villeneuve practiced with low fuel load, race tyres and so on, and it seems to be paying off. Well, just a minute. Here is Barrichello coming towards us in fifth position. Behind him is Gerhard Berger. Then it's Martin Brundle, who is in seventh place. David Coulthard in the second McLaren Mercedes as we look back to Chapel. And behind them are Frentzen and Herbert, ninth and 10th.
Now, it's easy looking at Damon Hill being certainly a few car lengths behind Mika Hakkinen to think, why isn't he all over the back of him? Why isn't he trying to find a way by and diving up the inside, etc.? And the reason is, of course, with these Formula One cars, that once you get any closer than Damon Hill's 1 second gap there to Mika Hakkinen, you get into the turbulent air of the car ahead. And aerodynamic performance, as we said, is so important to the cornering grip that then you simply don't get your wings to work so effectively and you can't get the grip. And so, you just can't keep that close. And so Damon is being held up. And what you're seeing now, as we look from Damon's cockpit, is a man driving as closely as he can to the car in front without losing performance from his car, from those wings. But what a stunning start that was from Jean Alesi. Alesi really got that absolutely right. But the other thing is, whilst we originally thought this was going to be a two-stop race, and it may still be, looking at the lap times, and Villeneuve's fastest lap so far is... So 1 minute 29.3. I have a feeling that that's a little bit slow to be consistent with a two-stop routine. The reason, of course, that the times are faster stopping twice is the fact the fuel load is lighter. The lighter the cars, the faster they go. And we can get a bit of an idea about what kind of weight they're carrying in the cars from the lap times they're doing. So I'm just going to sow the seed here. Maybe Villeneuve and possibly Alesi, maybe Villeneuve's not going to stop until about lap 30. Now, if that's the case, if these front drivers, and it could be all four, Villeneuve, Alesi, Hakkinen and Hill, if they're going to make one stop, that makes Damon Hill's job all the more difficult because the Williams team cannot rely on a pit stop providing them with a chance of getting by Hakkinen's car by lap 20. They're going to have to go on until lap 30 before pit stop work can come to play, and even then, it has to be said that McLaren are very, very good at that, and this really is big. It's a huge blow for Damon. You can see him wrestling him hard, fighting the wheel, clipping the curb on the inside there. Now, either side of that cockpit, you can again see those vertical faces of those vertical plank type things. Either side of the cockpit, just ahead of the mirrors. Those are what we were saying before. Those are the barge boards that streamline the airflow of the car all the way down the sides, and so important in making the whole aerodynamic package work.
Damon Hill, fourth place, ahead of him, Mika Hakkinen. You can see what Jonathan was talking about now as we ride with the Williams, with the McLaren ahead, through the complex at Beckett's, the right, left, down the hangar straight. And this is the hangar straight with Hill building up to 180 miles an hour. So there is the Benetton, there is the McLaren, there is the Williams, and Tony Jardine, as ever, has been beavering away. He can tell us the story on Ferrari.
It is a story filled with woe and real drama behind here. As you can imagine, there is a massive press scrum trying to find out what has happened. Schumacher's car was stuck in sixth gear, so it wasn't the engine, as Jonathan perhaps thought had happened. He was absolutely right. We've spoken to Eddie Irvine. Hopefully we'll get that tape over to you very shortly, but he's also lost power from his engine. He's desperately disappointed. They don't really know what they can do about it at the moment, but it is a bad day for Ferrari.
Yes, the problem with Ferrari, you see, is that different things keep on going wrong. You're not losing any information at the front. It's still Villeneuve, Alesi, Hakkinen, Hill, Barrichello and Berger. But in Canada, it was a front suspension push rod that broke on Irvine's car. It was a transmission shaft that broke on Schumacher's car. after he had been unable to start. Then Schumacher had a piston go in France, and Eddie Irvine had a gearbox selector valve give trouble. Now it's gearbox for Schumacher and loss of power for Eddie Irvine. All the problems with Ferrari seem to be spread out over the car as a whole. And here is a spin from somebody. It looks like a replay of a spin. Let's see what happens. I think it's Pedro Diniz. It is Pedro Diniz. He's had a lot of problems in the Ligier, a lot of problems in keeping it on the track in the Friday session and qualifying yesterday. Katayama just scrambling past. He was very lucky, just as David Coulthard was very lucky to get past in one of the previous races. So Katayama was there, but we're back again with Damon Hill, and the gap between him and Mika Hakkinen is 1.5 seconds.
And if you wonder what happened there, when we looked at the screen from Damon Hill's onboard camera and we saw the little blobs of dirt moving across, that's how they keep the camera lens clean. They actually move the film across to give us this wonderful view. But going back to Diniz and that spin, he's recovered from that. He's still going. And that's one of the other great skills of a Grand Prix driver. And I don't mean spinning, I mean recovering from spinning. Now, Diniz spun that at Stowe Corner at about probably 100 miles an hour when that Ligier went round. But reaction would be instantly, not one of fear and oh my goodness, I can't possibly carry on, but just carrying on as if nothing had happened. And any of these drivers would react in exactly the same way. But looking at what's happening out here again, we're there with Mika Hakkinen following along, of course, behind Jean Alesi. I think, there goes, it looks like a wasp has bought that one. And I think that actually Hakkinen, he could even be being held up to an extent by Alesi. It doesn't look like that from where we're standing. But looking at Alesi's times, if, for example, Alesi was only intending to stop once, and that would mean, again, lap 30-ish, it might be that Hakkinen and Hill were both intending to stop twice or are going to stop twice, but can't make use of their lighter car. Certainly Hill is being held up by Hakkinen. The frustration is enormous. What he will tend to do, the gap will wax and wane. Damon needs to have a charge, get right up behind, know he's going to lose a little bit of grip, and as he does so, he will work his tyres harder, which is a bad thing, because the harder he works those tyres, the more performance they will gradually lose. Because although these tyres are going to be only on this car for a maximum of 100 miles, these Grand Prix are 200 miles length in total, probably even only for 60 miles, they are going to be well down on their performance by the end of that, either 60 miles or 100 miles worth of running. And this is no disrespect to Goodyear, this is just the way they are designed and the loads that they're under, and anything that Hill does to slide the car will take away more performance, will take away performance prematurely. So that's why Damon can't keep being right up behind Hakkinen, because he will take performance away from what he'll be looking at doing now. Is coming down into this is Beckett's. He's not going to get by into Beckett's. This fast-flowing nature gives him no chance. So he doesn't want to be too close to this, certainly on the early part, to Hakkinen either, because then he can't get by and he'll just lose grip from the front tyres. He'll slide them and they'll go off. Here is where he wants to be close. Here is coming down the main straight. Look at him tucking in. Diving up the inside into Stowe is a possible place for overtaking. Then he goes through this right-hander. He knows that there's nothing he can do here. He will know that unless Hakkinen makes a mistake, there's no way he can get by into this very tight left-hander, into Club either. So he just dutifully follows through. No point in trying to weave around, no point in trying to get aggressive. Just keep your tyres cool, as he's doing, and just follow on where you have to. The same will be the case going into Abbey Corner. Damon knows he's got no chance of getting by here. And the same as he goes through Abbey, he can just follow once again. He's coming out of Abbey. He will be up into fifth gear, 155 miles an hour. No chance through here. And into this next left-hander. Well, he had a look at that last year. That's where he had a look at going by Michael Schumacher. And I think he'll be very, very cautious about trying anything like that again. And so you can see we're pretty much back round to the end of the lap. Now, one place where he might have a chance is out of that corner. That is Jacques Villeneuve as he comes out of Copse Corner. And it's into that Copse Corner that there may be a possibility for Hill to get by Hakkinen. But I don't think he's going to be able to do it until perhaps his first round of pit stops.
We'll see. Meantime, you watch race leader Jacques Villeneuve as we join Damon Hill again. And the gap has waxed and waned from 0.8 of a second to what it is now, 1.1 seconds. Because, as you know now, the closer that Damon Hill gets to the McLaren Mercedes in front of him, the more buffeting he gets, the less downforce there is on the front wheels, the more difficult it is for it to pull out and pass Mika Häkkinen. And Mika Häkkinen, of course, is relishing the situation that he's in now. The highest he's finished in a Grand Prix this year. And did I see a puff of smoke there from Lacey? I'm sure I did. Now, it may just have been his tyres locking up. Anyway, he's going well enough here. I was saying that Mika Häkkinen's highest place that he has had so far is 4th position in the Brazilian Grand Prix. He's a very, very comfortable, determined and assured 3rd position here. I remind you that he had that terrible crash in practice for the Australian Grand Prix at Adelaide last year. And there is another retirement. Ricardo Rosset, that makes the 4th retirement, I think. I haven't seen Katayama recently. Schumacher is out of the race. Irvine is out of the race. Katayama seems to be. Ricardo Rosset certainly was being pushed there, which means his engine had stalled. So therefore he has automatically retired. But the battle for 2nd position continues to rage with a Lacey 2nd. Häkkinen, you can see the gap between him and the Benetton, and we're with the 4th place man Hill now.
Now look at the aerial as we've just come off the in-car camera. I'm sure we should go back to the in-car camera fairly soon on Hill's car. Just have a look at the view that he has down that long nose of the Williams, because in front of him he has 2 aerials. He has the taller one, which you'll see weave around. Now there it is. He's going down the main straight now. Watch it lean to the left as he goes through Stowe Corner there. The top of that aerial, that's the aerial that he will be talking on, or the airwaves will be transmitted through. And the one just as a little blob just behind it, and that is the radio transmission for the data that gets sent back every lap, every time Damon Hill comes past his pit. The data, including all sorts of things like engine temperature, oil pressure, even the steering angle, gets sent back to the pit. So that's a stop, that's a routine stop, and this means, it looks like it is a long one. Yes, the fuel is going in, it's a long stop, and it's an early stop. New tyres on the Ligier, you can see the labels on it. And this looks like maybe they're going for a 3-stop routine with this Ligier, although it's a long stop to be just putting in. If it was a 3-stop routine, stopping the first to 3 times, it was rather too long, and maybe there was a problem with it. We didn't see the start of the fuel stop. That was the problem.
43 seconds is what it took Olivier Parnis on that stop, and that is an extraordinarily long one. I would have thought something like 25, maybe even 30 seconds, because it's a very, very long pit lane approach, pit lane and exit here at Silverstone. I think it's the longest in Grand Prix racing, actually. But still, the first 4 are as they were before. It is still Villeneuve with that massive 18 seconds lead, and he's coming up now to Olivier Parnis. So he will be slowed up a bit here, because although Olivier Parnis will realise that it is Villeneuve, the race leader, that's coming up behind him and is going to lap him, he's probably going to move over and let him through. We're on lap 17 now, so Parnis, and he is down in 13th position, having made his pit stop. Villeneuve comes up to the left-hander at Prix. Parnis moves over, lets him through, and has now been lapped. So the next target for Jacques Villeneuve is Pedro Diniz, who is in 13th position, and the gap between Lacey 2nd and Hill in 4th position is about 3 seconds. As Pedro Lamy comes towards us, he's the next target, and Jacques Villeneuve leads the British Grand Prix on lap 18 out of 61. We're back again with Damon Hill looking at Mika Häkkinen in 3rd place ahead of us. Now, we'll know soon whether any of these first 4 drivers are going to be on a 2-stop strategy, because we're on lap 18 now, and they should be coming in round about lap 20 if they are.
Yes, that's exactly right. If anyone's going to be making 2 stops rather than 1, they're going to be into the pits in certainly the next 5 laps, and it looks like Martin Brundle has come into the pit. So this is consistent with his first stop. It should be round about 8 seconds if he's going to be making 2 stops. So let's watch the stop, watch the way that these 16 mechanics have this wonderfully choreographed work. It's superb. The fuel pipe coming in on the right-hand side. Tyres are done before the fuel. They're waiting for the fuel. Well, it's 11 seconds, 12 seconds. That's a little bit of a long stop. I think that should have been able to be completed in more like 10, Brundle goes out to rejoin, but the crucial thing is what's happening with the front guys? What's happening with Damon Hill? Now, what would be an absolutely dreadful scenario for Hill is if Villeneuve was going to be running a one-stop routine, in which case he won't come in for another 13-ish laps. And I think, again, his lap times, I think, could be consistent with that. And yet Hill was planning on making 2 stops. He can't make use of the better ultimate performance of his car because he's being held up by Hakkinen. And yet he's going to have to pay the price of making these 2 stops. And in which case that'll happen in the next couple of laps, 2 or 3 laps. That would be very bad news for Damon Hill.
So there are Hakkinen and Hill, and Tony Jardine is with, in the pit lane, Eddie Irvine.
Eddie, a terrible day for Ferrari. What happened to you?
Don't know what it was, to be honest. Just a lot of smoke coming out of the back of the car. I lost a bit of power. I assume it was the engine, but it could have been a transmission or something.
Has anybody said anything to you at all disconsolately inside? Have you spoken to John Barnard?
No, I haven't spoken. I just got out of the car, man. It's just one of them things. It's really disappointing at this stage because we haven't had engine problems, or we've had, but it's unbelievable, really. It's really tough for the guys inside the team because they work so damn hard. Like, there's no team I've ever been at where the guys work so hard, and to be rewarded with this sort of crap's very tough for them.
Weren't you using the older engine for more reliability?
Oh, it's the engine we've used all year, really. It's
Jack
just so
Villeneuve has now got past Giancarlo Fisichella in the Minardi Ford. He is in 14th position, and the Canadian is starting to look invincible. He has a 17-second lead on lap 19 out of 61. He's carving his way magnificently through the traffic as he closes up on the cars ahead of him, and Jean Alesi is still ahead of Mika Hakkinen, who is still ahead of Damon Hill. Rubens Barrichello is some 9 seconds in 5th position behind Damon Hill, and Gerhard Berger is in 6th place. So now this is the battle on the track in the first 6. Damon Hill there, the man who has already won 6 Grand Prix this year, and he's down in that 4th position.
But let's just think how it might be resolved. It hasn't been resolved in 19 laps of being on the circuit. As into the pits comes Rubens Barrichello. Expect to see the Gold Jordan having its first of 2 stops. So it's going to have to happen in the pits, I'm sure of that. Now, let's presume for the time being that both these... Now, that's a better stop. That's what Brundle's stop should have been like. 8 seconds. That's how long it should have been. I cannot believe Brundle's putting enough fuel to get to the end of the race. The car could probably just about do it, but that is really not going to happen. So this is the battle, though. Hakkinen holding up, and he's quite right to hold him up. Make no mistake about that. That's Mika's job, and he's doing a great job. He's holding up Damon Hill there. Now, if they are both going to make 2 stops, and I can see the Williams crew coming out. This is going to be for somebody. Now, I think we think it's going to be for Villeneuve, apparently. And if that's the case, then that means he's going to lose about 20 seconds at this pit stop. He's 16.5 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi, who's 2.7 ahead of Hakkinen, 1.1 to Hill. So if this is Villeneuve will come out just about alongside Damon Hill. Although Damon Hill, again, we've got to work out what his strategy is. Now, what will be very good for Damon Hill is if Mika Hakkinen is on a 2-stop routine, and he will peel off and get out of Hill's way in the next couple of laps, in the next 2 or 3 laps, whilst Hill is on a 1-stop routine, to give him the chance then to finally stretch his legs, and then for another 10 laps, try and make up some kind of impression, try and claw back some of the ground that he's lost. It's a long, long time now. Hill is 20 seconds behind Villeneuve, and I really must say that I think short of a mistake from Villeneuve, Hill is not going to be winning this race.
Well, I talked about the length of the pit lane a few seconds ago. It is taking about 38 seconds, and we can see the tyre warmers now being taken off the tyres, and Damon Hill has a real go at Mika Hakkinen. That's the first time he's actually lunged to get past the McLaren Mercedes since Mika Hakkinen passed him at the beginning of the race. He had a determined go there, but he failed to do it. And Villeneuve now, as we go back to look at Damon Hill, is on lap 21. There's still 40 laps to go, and certainly 2 stops we expect. And Mika, 3rd. Damon Hill in 4th position. Behind them, it's Gerhard Berger up into 5th place. David Coulthard in 6th. So both the McLaren Mercedes are in the top 6.
Both the Williams Renaults are in the top 6, and for that matter, both the Benetton Renaults are in the top 6 as well. So it's a 3-team race at the present moment. Now, what about Villeneuve and that pit stop? Oh, we're with Hill now as he goes over the grid. And Villeneuve has just made the fastest lap of the race. 1 minute 29.288. He did that on his 21st lap. Of course, his fuel load, there he is, his fuel load has come down now. And he is definitely coming in, we believe, at the end of this lap. So he has a 20-second lead, 23-second lead now between him and Hill. And Hill, of course, is in 4th position. We're with the Williams Renault now. That is Mika Häkkinen in front. But meantime, Villeneuve is 20 seconds up the road, and Hill has another go as they go past and lap Pedro Lamy in the Minardi Ford. So Damon Hill is certainly not giving up. He's looking for every opportunity he can get to get past the McLaren Mercedes. Where is Villeneuve? He should be coming into the pits very shortly. And Häkkinen and Hill exit the right-hander and come up towards us now with Alesi still in front of them.
And Villeneuve is really going as hard as he possibly can at the moment to try and increase that gap, but he's being helped by the back marker, Pedro Lamy, and somebody is off. Someone's locked up in a big way, or is it engine smoke? We can't see behind it. Let's have a look, please. Where are we? Well, we don't know. Maybe it's just a big lock-up from somebody. It could have been a spin that's recovered. It could well have come from tyres. And it was a Ligier spin, we've just heard, so we won't be seeing a car parked there probably if he's managed to get going again. So Hill again does not come in the pit, so this looks like it could be Villeneuve if he's going to come in for his stop. And now Villeneuve's got 22.4 second lead, and he gained a little bit of that, certainly a couple of seconds, because Alesi got held up behind Pedro Lamy, and it was probably Lamy being involved as he was being lapped by Alesi and lapped by Häkkinen and Hill that helped Hill close up and have that chance to get by Häkkinen.
Now there are Villeneuve's tyres. JV, Jacques Villeneuve on the tyre warmers. 22 seconds lead. We know that a full stop as Pedro Lamy pulls off is taking off the order of 38 seconds from the time they enter the pit lane to the time they exit the pit lane. Still tremendously close for second, third and fourth. Alesi, Häkkinen and Hill. I wait for Jacques Villeneuve to come into the pits and certainly to lose his lead. He will go down, I think, to 4th position, maybe even 5th position, because Alesi will go through and take the lead. Häkkinen will go through up into 2nd position. Damon Hill will move up into 3rd place. Maybe even Gerhard Berger will go to 4th place. And Jacques Villeneuve is now in the pit lane, coming up to his garage. He will make an immaculate stop, I'm sure. He does so up to the front jack, up to the rear jack. Up comes the car. Off come all 4 tyres and wheels. In goes the fuel filler. And the lollipop man lifts the board, and Jacques Villeneuve boils out in 9.5 seconds from stationary. And there is Alesi going through, and Häkkinen going through, and Damon Hill is alongside his teammate. And Damon Hill and Villeneuve are together as Villeneuve rejoins the track, and Villeneuve is in 4th position on new tyres. Damon Hill is in up a position, but of course he is on old rubber. And here is the new leader coming towards us with the red flash on his nose cone, Jean Alesi. 2nd is Häkkinen, 3rd is Hill, 4th, having made his pit stop, is Jean Alesi. 5th is still Gerhard Berger. 6th is David Coulthard. Those are the top 6. And Häkkinen goes through and takes the Minardi of Giancarlo Fisichella, who is in 5th position. But this is a false bit of excitement in many ways because, of course, Alesi, Häkkinen and Hill and later Berger have got to come in and make their pit stops, and the status quo will be returned. We're on lap 24 now. It's a 61-lap race. And David Coulthard has been into the pits and out, as has Barrichello, as has Brundle. Villeneuve, of course. Johnny Herbert has been in. Harnish has been in. Katayama was in a long time ago and is out of the race. And we're with Mika Häkkinen now. 2nd position. Where is Jean Alesi? There is the answer. It's that that fast-moving blob ahead, and the blob is the Benetton Renault, which contains Jean Alesi, the winner of the Canadian Grand Prix for Ferrari last year. Villeneuve right behind Damon Hill, but effectively a long way, about 25 seconds ahead of him, because he has made his pit stop and Damon Hill has not. This is lap 25. Lots of action to come.
Well, the race is taking shape now. We've seen that Jacques Villeneuve, with that short stop, must be on a two-stop strategy. But the Williams team have really gone back into the garage now, and that means that it looks to me as if Damon Hill is not going to be pit-stopping himself in the next few laps. So, lap 30 would be mid-distance. That was when he'd make that one stop, but that's going to be a longer stop if he's going to do that. And normally we'd expect to see about a 12-second stop if he was going to put enough fuel in to get to the end of the race. But at one race, in fact, at the San Marino Grand Prix, he did two stops, but the first one being very late. I don't think that's going to be the case here. Now, that is good news in a way for Damon Hill, because at least it means he hasn't been slowed up as much as he would have been had he been making two stops. But what's not so good news for him is the fact that Mika Hakkinen looks to be on exactly the same routine, because whilst his teammate, like Villeneuve, has gone for the two-stop option, it looks to me as if Hakkinen is going for the one-stop option, and so the whole issue of whether Hill can get by Hakkinen is going to depend on exactly when they stop and exactly how long their pit stops are, how fast they can get into the pits and how fast they can get out of it.
Looking down at the first four, well, it's Hakkinen and Hill, actually, at the present moment, with Alesi. There he is, leader. Hakkinen second, Hill third. Villeneuve, who has stopped, is fourth. He is very much in command of the race now on lap 26, coming up towards half a distance, which is lap 30 and a half, to be pedantic about it. It's a 61-lap race. And Alesi is where he wants to be, with the Benetton and the Renault V10 engine behind him. Renault pulling out of racing at the end of next year. And Hill now is very close indeed to Mika Hakkinen. Is he going to have a go here? He has tried in the past, but we know how difficult it is.
Well, it looks like there's a bit of action from the Williams pit, a bit of activity. They seem to be looking around. They're definitely moving out into the pit lane. So now we have something to think about. Is this going to be Damon Hill's only stop? It's late enough that it could be his only stop. Or is it going to be the first of two? Now, the other thing that the Williams team may well have done is decided that now it looks clear that Mika Hakkinen is going to be staying out until circa lap 30, that they will bring Hill in early. They know that although that's not optimum, if Hill was on a clear track, he ought to make better use of his low fuel tank volume now. He's being held up by Hakkinen, and one of the chances that the Williams team do have of getting Hill by Hakkinen is to pull him in early and get him back out again on a clear bit of track without following Hakkinen, so he can make up ground. He can probably lap a second or so faster than Hakkinen if he's got a clear bit of track, so that when Hakkinen makes that single stop, he will come out and then he will be behind Hill. This looks to be the smart thing to do. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Hill come in the next couple of laps, and as the way of getting... And he's not gone off!
Damon Hill out of the British Grand Prix. Well, it happened last year. It has happened again. The World Championship leader who blew it at the start. I didn't see what happened. I suspect he was trying to pass Mika Hakkinen and either touched the McLaren Mercedes as he touched Schumacher's Benetton last year, or maybe he just overdid it, but the end result is the same. Now let's have a look and see what happens. There is Alesi, there is Hakkinen, and yes, Hill goes into it, and it's exactly the same thing that happened to him at Hockenheim as he went into the first corner there last year, because the Williams just spun out and the back of the car stepped out. Now we're on board with Damon Hill, and you can see the back of the car steps out, and in a flash Damon Hill has gone, and for the third time this year he finishes a race with no points. It happened at Monaco, and then it happened in Spain, and now it's happened at the race that Damon honestly would have wanted it to happen less than anywhere else in the world. This was the race his father never won. It was the race that Damon led in 1993. It was the race that Damon won in 1994. It was the race that he ignominiously exited last year, and he's done so again. And Mika Hakkinen comes into the pits from third position. Gerhard Berger, of course, has moved up from second position, I'm sorry, because of the change. And out, that's an excellent pit stop, only 6.9 seconds. But I say again, it's the time in and the time out that makes all the difference. Lots of sympathy from the crowd, and Damon manages to force a smile. But Jean Alesi now is in the lead. Villeneuve is up into second position. Hakkinen has stopped, and you're looking at the new race leader of the British Grand Prix, Jean Alesi, who's only won one Grand Prix in his long career, and that was the Canadian Grand Prix for Ferrari last year. He so much wants to win for the Benetton Renault team, who have not even looked like doing so this year. But I say again, do not forget that this is not the correct race situation with Alesi in the lead. Yes, he is in front as Hill's car is removed, but Villeneuve, only 4 seconds behind him, has made that first stop. And so he is effectively leading the race.
Poor old Damon Hill. He's going to be feeling absolutely numb about that. I think on the face of it, it was probably a driver error. I think maybe Damon just thought he saw a chink of opportunity, and that's all you're going to get around a track like Silverstone, or indeed any Grand Prix track these days. You're never going to get a yawning gap to go up the inside and try and overtake somebody. Copse Corner was always just about on if you were lucky. Maybe he thought that he could catch Mika Hakkinen napping and just nip up the inside. And in just breaking those extra few meters later, it was too late. The back whipped round as it did on that first lap in the German Grand Prix last year, and Hill out and into retirement. So there's Villeneuve in second place behind Alesi. But that really is a colossal blow to Hill. And again, not a good race after a bad start. This is what we saw at the Grand Prix of Europe, once again at the Nürburgring. But back to the stops. That stop of Mika Hakkinen's was too fast, actually, to be his only stop. It was certainly being on lap 28, it was late enough that he could have got to the end, but 6.9 seconds will only have got enough fuel in to get. This is Berger in second. This is Berger in third place, but with only 6.9 seconds, that will require another fuel stop and probably around about lap 45, something like that for Hakkinen. But the Benetton teams are surely on a one-stop routine. They will be coming in the next 3 or 4 laps, I would have thought. And if this is going to be enough fuel going into these cars to get to the end of the race, it's going to be something like 12, 13 seconds in the pits.
Gerhard Berger, third place, is coming up to lap Olivier Panis, who is 13th and has stopped, whereas Gerhard Berger has not. And on lap 30, which is the half-distance lap, now Alesi is about 3.3 seconds on the road ahead of Jacques Villeneuve, who is some 7 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger in third position. But neither Alesi nor Berger have stopped. Mika Hakkinen is in fourth place. So effectively, I think when Alesi and Berger have come in, we'll see Villeneuve in the lead and Hakkinen up into second place, and the two Benettons third and fourth. That's what I think is going to happen. We'll see whether it actually does. Meantime, Gerhard Berger down the Hangar Straight at about 180 miles an hour into the 105 miles an hour slow corner. And for a lot of the crowd, as Berger now does go past Olivier Panis, the excitement and the savour of the race will have disappeared. They came here hoping, indeed expecting confidently, to see Damon Hill win. It was Hill that they were carrying the flags for. It was Hill that they were rooting for. It's Hill that they want to win the World Championship. Well, he's lost 10 World Championship points by not finishing, and if Villeneuve finishes in first position today, he will be on 48 points to Damon Hill's 63, so the gap will be down to 15 points. And we have news from Tony Jardine in the pit lane in the Williams area.
Just come from waiting for Michael Schumacher. He's not said anything yet. They've just confirmed at Ferrari that his car was stuck in sixth gear. We heard the Hill drama through our headset here, immediately came in to speak to Williams. There has been a message back from Damon. It is a suspected front wheel bearing failure. We're waiting for Damon Hill to come back into the pits, and as soon as we get hold of him, we'll try and interview him.
Well, now, let's put down the rumours before they even start, because I can see tomorrow's newspapers, and there will be headlines like,
Hill blows it again. Hill cracks to pressure. Hill cannot pass. You heard from Tony Jardine that the problem was a suspected front wheel bearing. That would obviously affect the handling of the car, to put it very mildly indeed. A car problem and not a Damon Hill problem. Damon has settled down extremely well after the enormous pressures that he's been facing all through the season and last year in particular. So it is very nice indeed to say that it does not appear to have been his fault. And we're on lap 31 as you look at Mika Hakkinen in fourth place behind Jean Alesi, Jacques Villeneuve, Gerhard Berger, and ahead of Rubens Barrichello. So the Jordan is up into the points. David Coulthard in the second McLaren Mercedes is in the points after a very poor start. And into the pit lane comes the Benetton over the line and up to the pits stop. This is Jean Alesi. Villeneuve goes back into the lead, which of course is where he effectively was before, having made his stop earlier. 10.4 seconds, that is longer than Jacques Villeneuve took. And you've got to add on the entrance. And look at Hakkinen in the red and white car. He's going to pass Jean Alesi, and he does so. Hakkinen moves up a place into second position, and Alesi goes down into third position. So, lap 32, 61 lap race. Villeneuve leads, Hakkinen second, having stopped. Alesi is third, having stopped. And Gerhard Berger has yet to come in. And coming down the hangar straight towards us in the green-winged car, that's the Minardi of Fisichella. Past him goes Hakkinen. Past him next will go Jean Alesi. And we're into the second half of the British Grand Prix.
Well, that was a super stop from the Benetton team to get in enough fuel, and I'm sure it was enough fuel to get to the end of the race in just 10 seconds. And, of course, that has to include getting the fuel pipe on. Getting it off was absolutely brilliant. And that's going to certainly help in his quest, because I think that Hakkinen has got to make another fuel stop. The timing of his stop was correct or appropriate for him to get to the end of the race, but again, there was too little fuel going on. But may I just say how delighted I am for Damon Hill. The fact that twitch, the spin that we had clearly nothing to do with any error on his part. That's certainly what it seems to be at the moment. And from that wheel bearing failure, and two, the fact that the wheel bearing fail would have had nothing to do either, I think, with the way that he would have been driving. He was driving with the neat precision with which we've come to expect so much. And it's always very difficult to tell in these situations whether or not such a spin is from driver error or whether it's from mechanical failure. And both options have to be covered, and I'm very pleased for Damon's sake, certainly on this, that it looks strongly as if it is indeed a mechanical problem. But again, it's been a difficult race for Damon. He got off to a bad start. He was struggling. It was not going to be a win for him, I'm afraid, anyway. He was going to be looking at perhaps third, even if things went well for him, and with any further improvement having to come from people ahead dropping out. But this is the fascination now between Mika Hakkinen and Jacques Villeneuve. We've got, and of course, Alesi behind. Villeneuve is now 8 seconds out. We know that he's got a further stop to make, and that's going to be around about lap 40. We don't think Alesi's going to have a further stop. Berger has yet to make his only stop. So whilst Berger is in second place, 8.1 seconds, we can see it there behind Villeneuve. It's rather artificial because he's going to lose some 20-odd, 25 seconds when he comes into the pits, and that'll put Berger well back really where he was, of course, and somewhere around the area, probably just ahead of Barrichello, I would have thought, round about here.
Well, we're with Mika Hakkinen, who looks at the present moment as though he's going to finish higher than he has finished this year. He hasn't been on the podium yet in 1996, but Jacques Villeneuve equally in the second half of the race is looking very secure indeed in what is almost invariably a very reliable Williams Renault. And in from second place comes Gerhard Berger for what I imagine will be his only pit stop, because he is now he's completed 33 laps. And incidentally, one of the best times that we've had for a complete into pit lane to out of pit lane stop so far is that of Rubens Barrichello. He took under 38 seconds from entry to exit. So Berger is passed out of the pit lane, back onto the track in front of the vast crowd, and we join Jacques Villeneuve on his 34th lap. The 25-year-old man from Canada, from Quebec in Canada, and this is only his 10th Grand Prix. an incredibly mature, cool, very unusual chap. He dresses differently to other people. He thinks differently to other people. I used to say that James Hunt was an eccentric, and I mean that with kindness and in no way in a critical sense. And I think I would say the same thing in many ways about Villeneuve. He has an extremely unusual personality, but a tremendously determined and gifted driver. And if he could do this, coming up looking like winning his second Grand Prix out of his first 10, he is very, very clearly world champion material. Indeed, potential world champion material for 1996, because the gap between himself and Damon Hill, if Alesi stays where he is, will be down from 25 points to 15 points. Lap 35, race order. All of them having stopped once. Jacques Villeneuve is 30 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen. He can come in, make another pit stop almost, and get out in the lead. Not quite yet, but he's building up a lead, and his last lap was 1.5 seconds faster than that of Mika Häkkinen, who is second. Jean Alesi is 3 seconds behind. There is the McLaren. There is the Benetton. Häkkinen second, Alesi third. Gerhard Berger has made his stop and is 8 seconds behind his teammate. Both the Benettons are in the top 4. Rubens Barrichello is in 5th, and his teammate Martin Brundle is in 7th position in the second Jordan Peugeot. The Jordan team desperately looking for some World Championship points. The Peugeot engine has come good, and very much so this season, but the Jordan car, in the words of Martin Brundle, not mine, is not as good as the engine yet. That's where they've got to do the work. That's where they're concentrating on doing it, and it's heartening for them to have both their cars in the top 7. It would be a lot more heartening if they got them in the points.
Well, I think Martin Brundle must have had some kind of a problem, because he's made 2 stops already, and certainly his second stop did not look like to me to be a scheduled stop. He's 33 seconds behind Coulthard, who's 9 behind Barrichello, so he's already 42 seconds behind Barrichello at lap 35. And I suspect that he had some problem at the first refueling stop. We know that was long, and maybe it's relevant to his second one. I don't know.
20 cars started the British Grand Prix, 6 retirements. The 3 most notable being Schumacher, Irvine and Hill. Double champion world champion Michael Schumacher out on the 3rd lap when his Ferrari failed him. The next car out was the 2nd Ferrari. Dreadful race for them, as was France, as was Canada. So they have now had 3 races in succession with neither of their drivers, not just neither of their drivers finishing, all their finishes were in very unhappy circumstances. Irvine out on lap 8. Ukyo Katayama was out on lap 23. Ricardo Rossit out in the Arrows. Pedro Lamy out. Damon Hill out, of course. And now there are 14 left as we watch Gerhard Berger coming towards us in 4th place. Now he's closing on Jean Alesi. The gap was 8 seconds. It's now down to 6.7 seconds. So here are the top runners and the gaps between them, and whether or not they're gaining or pulling away. Jacques Villeneuve is on his 37th lap. He's 30 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen, and he's lapping faster than the McLaren. Häkkinen is some 3.5 seconds ahead of Alesi, pulling away. The gap has just gone up to nearly 4 seconds. But Gerhard Berger in the top 4 is the only one who is gaining on the man ahead. We're watching Rubens Barrichello, who is about 5 seconds behind Gerhard Berger. That is the young Brazilian. He's only 24 years old, but this is already his 58th Grand Prix in a team which he's made very much his. And here is David Coulthard in the points in the McLaren. And Coulthard started well down on the grid. He had an awful practice period. He had an awful warm-up this morning. He was only 9th on the grid, but now he's up to 6th position, a lot of it admittedly through defection of the people in front of him, but never mind, he is in the points. Hakkinen is in the points. Both the McLarens are, only one of the Williams is, both the Benettons are, and one of the Jordans is. And we're with Hakkinen in second place.
Now, until we've had the last round of pit stops, it's always important to consider the positions in the context of how many stops they've made. Are there any more fuel stops to come? So let's just review where we're up to. 61 lap race. Villeneuve on his 38th lap has got another stop to make, and I think that's going to be round about lap 40.
Now down in the pit lane, Damon Hill has arrived on foot. He's with Tony Jardine.
Damon, terribly hard luck. After all that hard work this weekend, it's all gone wrong. What happened?
I had a bit of a sensation that something was wrong with the front of the car for about 3 or 4 laps, and then finally I actually got on the radio and just said, I think I've got a problem with the car. And then as I was going into Cop's corner, I think something seized on the left front, but it just pitched me off the road. That was that.
It didn't go well off the grid, did it?
No, I made a very bad start, but I was still certainly in with a shout, because I could have done a one-stop strategy, and I still was within 20 seconds of Jack. And on that basis, there's still a very strong chance I could have won the race.
Did the car feel good up until it started to go funny?
Everything felt okay, but I was on heavier fuel than the guys in front of me, and I think being stuck behind Mika, I could get behind him under his wing and going onto the back straight, but then he just pulled away, and so I was pretty well stuck where I was. But there was nothing I could do about that except wait for the pit stops.
It seems to be the battle of the teammates it was for qualifying. Also now Villeneuve a bit closer in the World Championship.
That's right, and I think that there's going to be a big tough battle between us for the rest of the season. But I've been telling everyone beforehand that you just can't count on a 25-point lead lasting for that long in the middle of a championship. But the way things go, you're going to have the odd retirement here and there.
I know it's bad for you, but it could have been much worse. Look at the state of Ferrari, for example. Schumacher lap 3 out.
Yeah, but they've had, anything says, they've had a lot worse time than I had. So it's just the only thing to do is look ahead.
Absolutely. Damon, thanks for talking to us in hard luck. Thank you.
Damon, as ever, saying how it is, admitting that he made a bad start, admitting that he was stuck behind Hakkinen, admitting that he was looking for the pit stops to help him. Fair enough, that's motor racing, and as he rightly points out, a lot worse for Michael Schumacher than it was and is for him. But the fact remains that Jacques Villeneuve on lap 40, which is 2/3 race distance, is now 33 seconds ahead of Mika Hakkinen, and Jean Alesi is 5 seconds behind the Finnish driver in the McLaren. And I say again, it is extremely heartening to know that Damon's reputation is completely unsullied, not a Damon Hill problem, but a Williams problem, as opposed to a Renault problem, and I suspect a Williams supplier problem when the investigations are completed.
Yes, it's always very important. I was talking about the pit stops and who was due to come in, and we got hold of Damon, and it's always very, very difficult to get hold of drivers, particularly after desperately disappointing incidents like that, and so it's vital to cut through them. I've been down in the pit lane and I know how important that is too, but again, just like to reiterate there that Damon has been of a different caliber, I think it's fair to say, this year. He's been driving with a great deal of smoothness. He's immensely quick. In fact, his smoothness belies his speed. And it did seem extraordinary. I must admit, as he had that incident, I was very much thinking that this is either going to be a mechanical failure or having put a driver error. And it seemed very odd for it to be driver error. And I must once again express my great relief that it's not that, and that he did everything that he should have done on the way there. And as he said, it was only going as he correctly surmised, it was just the pit stops that were going to do it. So let's just look back at those pit stops. Jacques Villeneuve, we must expect to come into the pits again soon, in probably the next 5 laps. And when he does, it looks like Williams are getting ready. I'm having a look at the pit lane now, and this is going to be his final pit stop. But he's going to come out well ahead of Mika Häkkinen. He's 35 seconds ahead. Now, Mika Häkkinen, I think, has got another pit stop to go, although he did stop late enough. And if he does that, that's going to drop him back towards David Coulthard. But having said that, I find the situation rather odd, because it would be a very odd strategy to adopt. But it equally seems impossible to me that he got enough fuel in that car to get to the end of the race. Benetton, though, did. And Benetton are looking very strong. Lacey there, just 3.3 seconds behind Häkkinen in third. Berger, 2.8 behind Lacey. Berger driving much better these days. He drove very well in France, and he's driving well here. These two very closely matched all last year at Ferrari. Very, very closely matched this year at Benetton too, proving that Benetton can indeed make two cars virtually identical. You never make them absolutely the same. There's the Williams team getting ready for the next pit stop there for Jacques Villeneuve. But whilst Lacey and Berger don't need to stop again, David Coulthard does. And Rubens Barrichello, we saw him have his second stop. Now, when Coulthard stops, he's now in 5th place. That's going to drop Coulthard behind Barrichello, who will take over in 5th place. And the big question mark still is on this Häkkinen situation. Ligier smoking, that looks like an engine problem for Pedro Diniz there. He was running in 12th place, and there it is. Well, we saw flames out of the back of Diniz's car when he had a fuel filler problem in Argentina, and this time though it looks like an engine problem. Look at the smoke coming up through. That's the air inlet above his head.
Into the pits comes Martin Brundle. There he is from 7th position, 20 seconds behind his teammate Rubens Barrichello. See the aerodynamic form of the Jordan ahead of him. Up goes the lollipop, out goes Martin Brundle, and I'm expecting Martin actually to finish in the points. I will be mildly surprised as Pedro Diniz ruefully regards the smoking Ligier. And of course it's the same Pedro Diniz who exited his car much quicker in the Argentine Grand Prix when it caught fire very comprehensively indeed at speed, and Pedro had to abandon ship as quickly as he possibly could. But he has been improving his form considerably. He's already had 1 World Championship point in the Spanish Grand Prix, and the man that used to be a bit of a laughing stock in Formula One is getting a much better reputation these days. Now, this could be the time when Villeneuve comes into the pits, as David Coulthard does exactly that from 5th position. Now, Coulthard is on his 2nd stop. Looks as though all is going well. Out comes the filler, 9.5 seconds, and David Coulthard. And Villeneuve enters the pit lane. Race leader now. He's got a 36-second lead over Mika Häkkinen, 2nd in the McLaren Mercedes. The Williams team can and will, I'm sure, make a very careful, a very deliberate, and if necessary, a slightly slow pit stop to make sure, well, they don't. 7.4 seconds from stop to start. That is quick enough to satisfy anyone. And Mika Häkkinen is not to be seen as we rejoin Jacques Villeneuve exiting the pit lane. And there is one of the Jordans. It's Rubens Barrichello who is coming through. And sure enough, Jacques Villeneuve rejoins, still in the lead. So it will be a considerably diminished lead. But he's made his 2nd and last pit stop. He's on lap 43 out of 61. You look at Mika Häkkinen, who is coming through in 2nd position. And there he is at the top of Hanger Straight, doing 180 miles an hour, going down from 6th into 4th gear, turning in at about 105 miles an hour. That's the re-profiled Stowe corner to get it back to the shape that it was in before. Almost a much better corner from the racing driver's point of view. Now he exits the 3rd gear, 85 miles. And now a bend at Club, and you saw Martin Brundle go through. Now here are Lacey. This is the battle. They both stopped once, and this is a genuine on-track battle for a place that matters. And you will remember that in France, Lacey and Berger were in exactly these positions for, I think it was the last 21 laps, unless I'm very much mistaken. It was something like that. And anyway, Lacey now heads his teammate Gerhard Berger, and I will therefore say here at Silverstone what I said at Magny Cours. Whilst Gerhard Berger will be very determined to get past Jean Lacey and to move up onto the podium, where he's only been once this year, and that was at the San Marino Grand Prix, he will be very circumspect about how he tries to do so. Because finishing third on the podium by taking off Jean Lacey, who is in front of us now, would not earn him any brownie points. And if he took himself off as well, it would double his discount. He would be in very bad odour indeed. But as I said earlier on, this is Berger's 190th Grand Prix. He's not going to do anything stupid. Lap 44. Villeneuve leads, Hakkinen second. You're looking at the battle for third and fourth between Lacey and Berger. And a long way back is Barrichello. And there is smoke there from Lacey's Renault engine. And it looks as though it's going. And this is certainly something we do not expect from Renault. They are famous for building reliable engines. Remember, it was one that let Damon Hill down in 1993, but the smoke has disappeared. It may be just... But Gerhard Berger is challenging, and he's going for that third position as they come out of Abbey. Now, watch the back of Jean Lacey's car you can do it from Berger's point of view now as they go into the double left-hander, and he's through. So was Lacey pulling off? Yes, Lacey definitely moved over. He's conceding to Gerhard Berger, and there is a haze of smoke coming from the back of the Benetton. The little Frenchman is destined not to finish on the podium. Probably, indeed, he's destined not to finish at all. He's coming in, and Hakkinen comes in. Well, there is drama now because we're on lap 45. Villeneuve leads. Hakkinen is second. Gerhard Berger was very close indeed to him, and he's gone past now Jean Lacey. Barrichello will move up. David Coulthard will move up, and sure enough, Martin Brundle in the second Jordan goes up into the points into sixth position as you look at the stricken Benetton Renault of Jean Lacey.
And you may wonder what the Benetton mechanics are doing, putting on new tyres on a car that's clearly terminal, but that is very much their trained routine. They don't know it's terminal. It's not for them to judge. It's for them to get the car whenever it comes in to put a new set of tyres on. Look at the disappointment there from Jean Lacey, and quite rightly so too. They're looking at the back of the car. I wonder if this is a transmission or a hub problem. It's certainly from that right-hand side. We can see oil dripping down. It looks to me like it's some kind of... It is indeed. It's a hub problem. That is the disc. You can see it smoking, and that would have meant the wheel would have been moving around. If it hub problem there, they're putting a wheel back on it. But Lacey knows his day is over. I can't believe he's going to get back in the car, or there's anything they can do about it. Well, that's very, very sad indeed, and that would have slowed him down for the last few laps. He was some way ahead of Berger, and I think that probably explains why Berger was closing up towards those final stages. Mika Hakkinen back with him there. He really did make that stop. That does add up, and that means that they adopted a strategy, the same kind of one that we saw from Williams at Imola, and that was making it look like a one-stopper when coming in very late, but actually just putting in a short burst of fuel, and by doing that, you can then have a chance to get out of the traffic that you're in and then overtake other cars. That was the background to it. As it turned out, it wasn't necessary.
Well, very quickly, well done, our rail cam. We have a very sophisticated bit of kit in the pits, a camera that runs up and down on a little railway of its own, and it was able to close right in on the hub and disc of Lacey's stricken Benetton. But now, on lap 46, Jacques Villeneuve, the man that you are looking at, the 25-year-old Canadian, leads the British Grand Prix from Gerhard Berger, who is second, 20 seconds behind the Williams Renault engines first and second. Mika Hakkinen is third, looks as though he's going to be on the podium for the first time this year, 16 seconds behind Berger and 18 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan. David Coulthard is in fifth, having come up from ninth on the grid, and Martin Brundle is in the points. So, Williams Renault leads, Benetton Renault second, McLaren Mercedes third, Jordan Peugeot fourth, McLaren Mercedes fifth, and Jordan Peugeot in sixth position. Jordan Peugeot are looking good. I've said that before. We've still got 15 laps of the race to go.
And reliability has been the Jordan team's Achilles heel thus far this year. Fingers crossed that the team whose factory and headquarters at Silverstone is literally just meters away from the circuit main gate are hoping to get both their men in the points at Silverstone.
Now, as we look on board with Gerhard Berger's car, you see that black panel above his steering wheel. That contains various lights. Now, those show in the middle, that's when the engine revs build up, the lights come up to maximum. Now, when he comes down to third gear, lights at each side light up. Now, it won't happen here because this is a fourth gear corner at Stowe. He'll come out of here, he'll go up to fifth gear, then he'll come down to second. You'll see a momentary flash, I think, but then he'll pick third going into the next right-hander. Well, he's taking that in third, you see. Now he's up into fourth. Now he'll go up through the gears again. He'll probably take third again for this next one at Abbey. Now, you may wonder, why does a driver need lights to tell him he's in third gear? And the reason is because these semi-automatic transmissions, and then maybe we can surmise that's fourth gear, because I know that he has this system, and he'll be in certainly fifth or sixth gear with a 7-speed gearbox here. Now, this will provide another opportunity coming down. There it is. I knew it was going to come finally, because there is no gear lever to feel to know what gear you're in. It's something that you have to know from the feel of the revs, but also when you have the gears very close together in terms of maximum speeds, you need some visual indication of that, and that's Berger's.
Gerhard Berger on the previous lap was actually gaining on Jacques Villeneuve. He'd reduced the gap from over 20 seconds to just about 19.5 seconds. Mika Hakkinen still third and Barrichello fourth.
Now, that was interesting there. We saw a sign for Berger saying cool brakes. Now, this fits in with what we've seen from Alesi, because if that was a hub bearing that overcooked, or maybe some problem with the brake on that right-hand side, then they could be worried that the same reason that the problem afflicted Alesi's car could afflict Berger's car. So they're telling him to slow up and make sure that he doesn't overuse those brakes. And when you're on a circuit like this, the braking level is very high, and running a one-stop routine, it's even higher because the car runs in a heavier trim for more of the time. And interestingly, that was what Benetton have done here. This is not a typically very heavy braking circuit. Maybe they've tried something different on the car. Maybe they've tried some different brakes. But certainly, we expect to see Berger slow a little bit. His last lap was a 30.17, and that's as fast as Villeneuve's going. So let's just see if he backs it off. He's got a 19-second margin to Hakkinen. He's not likely to lose that, so I think he can do without challenging that position.
14 laps to go, and if you've only just joined the British Grand Prix, wherever you are, we've had some pretty dramatic developments, to put it very mildly indeed. Michael Schumacher out on the third lap, and he went out, of course, in France and Canada as well. Eddie Irvine, his teammate, out on the 8th lap. Damon Hill, who had managed to get up into third position after a dreadful start where the lead was taken by Jacques Villeneuve, retired on the 30th lap, no, the 29th lap to be exact, and he just went off because of a seizure. We suspect a front wheel bearing, something to do with the car anyway. And now on lap 49 in this 61 lap race, Jacques Villeneuve has most definitely got the race in his pocket. Gerhard Berger had closed the gap to under 19 seconds, and Villeneuve has speeded up. He was 0.3 of a second faster on the previous lap. And we're looking now at the two Sauber Fords, a very unhappy team. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the leader of these two cars, is outside the points. He's in 8th position, and he's followed by his teammate, Johnny Herbert, who last year, of course, drove for Benetton, Renault, and last year won the British Grand Prix after Schumacher and Damon Hill eliminated each other by driving into each other between Priory and Brooklands. And Johnny Herbert, with a lot of rumours about Heinz-Harald Frentzen and where he's going to be next year, has the target of beating his teammate here in the British Grand Prix, and it's on lap 50 now.
And whilst we're looking at the Saubers not going terribly well, and again, it'll be interesting there if Johnny Herbert can find a way past Frentzen, and I think we've got a different in strategy there. Frenson's the man that's done the one stop. Herbert's done the two stops, so he's faster at this point. His tyres are in better condition because they were new more recently. He may or may not be able to do anything about Frentzen. But the man that's really impressing me at the moment is Mika Salo in the Tyrrell. Now, he's in 7th place. And he's 17 seconds ahead of Frentzen, and he's just 6 seconds behind Martin Brundle. The Tyrrell have had a difficult time. The Yamaha engine that they run is very new this year. It's a very compact engine, but it's had plenty of reliability problems, and it's certainly not the most powerful. But the team have worked very hard on their chassis. They've done a lot of testing here at Silverstone, and this really is a very impressive result from performance from Mika Salo.
First place, you look down on Jacques Villeneuve. Well, we knew how good he was when he came to Formula One, and he certainly proved it this season. There's Villeneuve, but now Michael Schumacher can tell us what happened.
Unfortunately, I have to say, in 3 races, this is racing. This can happen. This is bad luck. But that's the way it is. As I've said just before, for the team, it's much more disappointing than it is for me. Even for me, it's very disappointing. But you must see the situation that we have been testing after Magny-Cours in Monza 3-4 days. We know we had an engine failure, but it was sorted out. We were very happy after we found the situation. We went to Imola just on Wednesday. We made a race distance without any problem, and then we come here Friday 30 laps, Saturday 30 laps, no problem at all. And then you don't go further than 3 laps in the race. This is really strange, but it's very unfortunate for us. We have to look further forward. We have to get our development done, which should come for Hockenheim. I believe we're going to be very competitive in Hockenheim. Obviously, it's not enough just to be competitive. We have to finish the race. And, it's just a big drama for us, but we have to overcome it, and we have for sure to have all the support from everybody to push further forward and go on. I mean, nobody likes to see Ferrari losing. Everybody likes to see Ferrari winning, and that's our target. That's what we have to work for now.
How do you feel inside?
As Michael Schumacher explains things from his point of view, we are now on the 51st lap of the 61 lap British Grand Prix, and whilst I always hesitate to say that a race situation looks settled, you can never really say that in Formula One. The fact is that there is not a battle for any of the top 6 points places at the present moment. As you watch David Coulthard, who is in 5th position. He's had better places than that this season, but points are very welcome to the McLaren team. However they gain, they're only in 4th position in the Constructors' Championship. We're riding on the McLaren now, and Jacques Villeneuve is 22 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger, who is 20 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen in 3rd place, who is 17 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello in 4th place. We're with David Coulthard, who is 15 seconds, and we look back at the left front wheel of David Coulthard's McLaren. That's something that we haven't seen before, and it shows you the configuration of the suspension with the wishbones. And that diagonal strut that you see is the part of the car that broke on Irvine's Ferrari in the last race. And in 6th position is Martin Brundle.
It's amazing to see how little movement goes on. You wouldn't think that those components were actually the suspension that, as on any car, moves up and down and articulates. Look again at it. There's hardly any movement. That's not because it's solid. He's doing about 180 miles an hour at that point. Now he's turning in through a right-hander, a left-hander. But look how little roll there is on the car. The 2 horizontal surfaces, you can see the wishbones. Now, they locate the wheel to keep it at the right angle. The diagonal bar, as Murray said, transmits the suspension load. When the wheel hits a bump, it does move, believe me, but it's only 2 or 3 millimeters, and we can hardly see that. You can almost detect it, but very, very little.
Well, we're not going to see Damon Hill win. We're not going to see him extend his World Championship lead. But without wishing ill to Damon, that's the last thing on earth I would want to do. A bit of closing up of the World Championship is going to make things a lot more interesting in the remaining races of this year. We go from here to Germany, and then to Hungary, Belgium, Italy, Portugal, and the last fly-away long-haul race in Japan. So there are still 6 races to go after this one. And the gap in the championship is now going to be down to 15 points between Damon Hill and Villeneuve.
Oh, big moment there for Johnny Herbert in the Sauber. And he did well to control that. If we didn't see him finish it, but I'm sure he regained the track again. And there is Mika Hakkinen, and he's of course has come by. That's him lapping Johnny Herbert. Johnny now losing a bit of ground to his teammate Frentzen. This is on board with Herbert, and of course we know that Mika Hakkinen's McLaren is in front of him. That is the end of the left front wing. And you can see the vertical face of it. This is right low down. You can see how tight he clips the line. It'll run wide towards the outside. Racing drivers, Grand Prix drivers particularly, can position the car to within 1 or 2 inches, lap after lap, at 170 miles an hour. You can hear the engine right down to third gear here. Look, there he goes. Immaculate precision, but that's normal. Nothing very special about that. Johnny Herbert doesn't do it any better or any worse than most drivers. It's just a very finely honed skill that you build up to.
And it's Coulthard's McLaren in front of him as he turns into the right. And Johnny Herbert does not look like achieving his ambition of beating his teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen. I was starting to talk about some of the rumours about movements. And needless to say, because we're well into the silly season, there are all sorts of them. There are rumours that Michael Schumacher has not got enough points to comply with some points of his contract, and that he might be free to move from Ferrari next year to some other team next year. I don't think he will, but there are all sorts of other rumours as well, that Heinz-Harald Frentzen will go to Williams. But the man who will move will be Villeneuve. Now, that was the rumour before this race started. If there was any substance to it at all, it certainly will have been knocked on the head, I think, by what Jacques is doing in this race. He's driving magnificently. He's going through now to complete his 54th lap. Only a few laps left now because he is on lap 55 out of 61, and he really could stroke the car home. He's 22 seconds ahead. So you look at Villeneuve. Tony Jardine has been looking at Benetton. What's been happening, Tony?
Jean Alesi, you saw him come in to retire. He was extremely upset. He was pushing and shoving everybody out of the way. I've just been into the garage cautiously, I might add, because he's still holed up in the back of his truck, to check with his Benetton engineer Pat Simmons, and it's yet another wheel bearing has failed. There was one for Damon Hill, suspected of course, but Pat Simmons confirmed it was a right rear wheel bearing for Jean Alesi, and he's very upset.
Interesting. Wheel bearing for Alesi, suspected wheel bearing for Damon Hill. I wouldn't have thought the stresses and side thrusts at Silverstone were particularly demanding in comparison with other circuits. But the situation remains unchanged as you look at the only Benetton left in the race, that of Gerhard Berger, who looks as though he is going to finish in the highest position that he has had this year. Gerhard Berger is a man who's won 9 Grand Prix for McLaren and Ferrari, and also for Benetton, because he won their first Grand Prix ever at Mexico in 1986, and it looks as though he's a surefire 6 points winner for second place at the British Grand Prix behind Jacques Villeneuve.
Yes, 2 wheel bearing failures by the sound of it there, and that's what we thought with the smoke coming off the hub. What happens there is that the wheel bearing wears, then the whole hub starts to move. Now, we saw what could be contributory, and I only say could be, is the fact that on the exit of some of these curves, they have what are called rumble strip curves. Now, when you have a look at an exit curve, you'll see that it has dips and rises. Now, if a driver keeps driving over those, that puts a lot of shock loadings through the required wheel, maybe on the left-hand side, on the left rear on Alesi's, and it could be that aggravates a marginal wear situation or load situation, causing or helping cause the wheel bearing to go. I think it's probably unlikely, but it's just worth watching the curbs, and we know that we've had Berger being instructed to slow down and watch the brakes again, and high brake temperatures will cause a high temperature. That heat is transmitted through the brake to the hub, and if it overheats the hub, that too can promote a wheel bearing failure.
Very easy to do. Michael Schumacher did it in qualifying yesterday. He didn't damage the wheel bearing, but he damaged the wheel, went over the curb, had to abort his run, lost one of his 4 sets of tyres that he was intending to use. And of course, with these rumble strips here, it is very easy to just run a bit too wide and damage something. Laps 56 now at the British Grand Prix. Thank heavens the weather has stayed good. It threatened rain, but it's just got better and better. And Jacques Villeneuve is on his 57th lap now. Only 4 laps to go at the end of this one, and he's a comfortable, commanding 20 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger, who is an equally comfortable, commanding 27 seconds ahead of Mika Hakkinen. So it's Williams, Benetton, McLaren, a 4th different constructor, Jordan, with Rubens Barrichello in 4th position, 14 seconds behind Mika Hakkinen. The second McLaren of David Coulthard is in 5th place, so both their cars are in the top 5. Good news for them. And the second Jordan is still in the points, that of Martin Brundle. He is in 6th position. If he finishes there, it'll be his third. We're looking at him now. It'll be his 6th place of 1996. And whilst Martin wants to beat Rubens Barrichello as much as Johnny Herbert wants to beat Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Martin has had a very, very torrid season. He started with that dreadful crash in Australia. Sadly, his father died, and he has found this a very, very difficult car to master. So it's very good indeed to see the popular Kings Lynn driver, one of the most experienced in Grand Prix racing, because this is his 152nd Grand Prix, doing so well here at his home track at Silverstone. 6th position, and the other runners left. There's only 11 left. Salo is 7th, far enough back not to be able to move ahead, I think. Frentzen and Herbert are in 8th and 9th, separated by only a second. Johnny Herbert has speeded up and is closed up on Frentzen and may yet get ahead of him. Jos Verstappen in the Arrows with the normal Hart engine as opposed to the new air valve one they used yesterday is in 10th position. And the last runner who has been lapped twice is Giancarlo Fisichella in the Minardi Ford.
And it's so easy to think as we look on that the drivers are almost in a cruise mode now with just 4 laps to go of the Grand Prix, but believe me, they are still working incredibly hard. The demands, the physical demands of driving a Grand Prix car are absolutely immense. These guys are going to have pulse rates of around about 160 beats per minute as they cope with not just the mental but the physical stress. It's very physical driving these cars. Now when Mika Hakkinen gets on the brakes of his car, he's going to be generating a force of 3.5, 4G. Without the seat belts, he'll be hurled out of the car. Coming through this sweeping section into Beckett's 150, 130, down through the gears. Particularly tricky here, actually, because this slows down all the way. So listen to the engine as he comes out. Into 5th. Into 6th, all the way down. Top speed, still 185, 190 miles an hour. Down a couple of gears. Through Stowe Corner in 4th gear. Being hurled around all the time, and this is why the drivers need drink bottles, because they can lose up to 1.5 litres, 2 litres of fluid in a hot Grand Prix. It's not particularly hot here at Silverstone, but it's important to replace it, and that's what Damon had here. And for Damon, it's going to be a time of considering what might have been, I'm sure. I don't honestly believe he would have had a chance to win here today. He's that start really put paid to that. He was not going to come back from the deficit that he had to Jacques Villeneuve, and it was about 20 seconds before Hill had his problem. But of course, what he would have done is probably finished in 2nd place, and that could have scored 6 precious points. Whereas, as it is, Villeneuve's going to go home with another 10 points, and that's going to bring him up from 38 points to 48 points in the championship. And that's just 15 behind Damon Hill. So, for example, one more problem, one more non-finish with another win for Villeneuve, and the championship all of a sudden is going to look incredibly tight.
There is Gerhard Berger, 2nd place, 21 seconds down, lap 59, and Villeneuve has got it made. It is going to be his 2nd Grand Prix win, but it is going to be the Williams team's 9th Grand Prix win this year. Sorry, it's going to be the Williams team's 8th Grand Prix win this year. I had forgotten, and I should certainly not have done, that Olivier Panis gave Ligier that magnificent victory at Monaco. So, although Hill is out, Villeneuve continues on behalf of Williams to dominate all the other constructors. Patrick Head, Adrian Newey, whose names you've heard a lot, but remember that they're backed by all the technicians and other workers at the Grove factory of Williams, this magnificent new installation they moved into recently. And Williams have consistently got their package better than that of anybody else. They're absolutely romping away. They're going to have 111 World Championship points at the end of this race, compared with 41 from Benetton. So Williams are going to be leading by an enormous margin. And it's lap 60 now for Villeneuve.
So Jacques Villeneuve well and truly on his way. Now he is now going to be listening out, making sure that Williams continues to hum smoothly. He's driven an immaculate race, but crucially, he got away first at the start from second on the grid. And that, assuming Hill had stayed on the track without that car problem, that could well have won him the race. So a brilliant performance from Jacques Villeneuve, and maybe, as David Coulthard showed last year, the second part of the season will show the upturn for the driver alongside Damon Hill at Williams. Behind that, Gerhard Berger is having his best race of the season. Second place, great result, albeit with some help from the others ahead of him falling out. But this is Gerhard Berger's 190th Grand Prix. He's the most experienced driver in Formula One. He started in Austria in 1984, so he's going to be thrilled with this result and relieved too. Whilst Mika Hakkinen shows that the Woking McLaren's team's fortunes are indeed improving, and they're well and truly ahead of the Jordan team at this race. They were in qualifying, they are in the race, and Hakkinen showing that he's fully recovered from that big accident in Adelaide, and he's going to be very pleased. He's going to be thrilled to make the rostrum. Rubens Barrichello in the Jordan team, making it a 2 McLaren, a 2 Jordan finish, so very good for both of those two teams, because you need reliability, of course, as well as getting the pace, and they've done that. David Coulthard will be a little bit disappointed to be in 5th place with teammate Hakkinen, but it is 2 precious points, whilst the top 6 is rounded off by Martin Brundle, and he'll be pleased to pick up 1 point.
And in Canada, and especially in Quebec, you can start waving those maple leaf flags, because your man is coming home. He is almost home and dry for his second Grand Prix victory in only his first 10 World Championship races. 25-year-old Jacques Villeneuve, who won the European Grand Prix so magnificently at Germany's Nürburgring, has done what he wanted to do. He's getting his revenge over Damon Hill for the victory that Damon had over him in Montreal. Damon won in Canada. Jacques Villeneuve is going to win in Britain at Silverstone, one of the few circuits where he's got considerable previous experience, and it has certainly showed here. Second on the grid, first into the first corner with an absolutely magnificent start, and Jacques Villeneuve crosses the line to win the British Grand Prix and take 10 superb World Championship points to close within 15 points of his teammate Damon Hill in the World Championship. It is a long way from being lost for Villeneuve as Gerhard Berger finishes in second position for Benetton, his highest place of the year. Mika Hakkinen is going to finish in his highest place of the year. So it's a very heartening race for Berger and for Hakkinen. Not so heartening for Benetton, because Alesi out of the race when he was in a good third position. And there is the Finn, Mika Hakkinen, who's now totally recovered from his Adelaide crash last year, a very nasty one indeed, and scores 4 vital World Championship points for himself and the McLaren team. And McLaren will now be 4th in the World Championship for constructors, only 3 points behind Ferrari, as Rubens Barrichello exits Woodcote, crosses the line in the Jordan Peugeot now is Martin Brundle. Yes, Martin Brundle has finished 6th, because as 5th place, David Coulthard brings the second McLaren home to 5th position. A very good race for the Woking team. Martin Brundle had been lapped and has therefore finished the race. Only 5 cars and drivers go the full distance at Silverstone, and there is the one that did the race distance in the shortest time of all, 1 hour, 33 minutes, 0.8 seconds, Jacques Villeneuve. 10 points at Silverstone, and that lifts his score to 48 points, just 15 behind Damon Hill.
and that is one race win and a second place. That would do very nicely if Damon didn't score any further points at those two races. It's going to be a very close thing, I think, in the World Championship of 1996 before it's over, because we've got a lot of racing still to go, a lot of countries to visit, and Villeneuve can feel very, very proud and happy with himself. I've little doubt that he will not show very much emotion. I put myself in mind of what Nigel Mansell would be doing on the podium if he was here and had won this race. But I don't expect Villeneuve to do anything but look very self-effacing about it. He's an incredibly self-contained, his own man. And whilst he will undoubtedly be absolutely delighted, and whilst he doesn't like to be reminded too often of the fact that he is the son of a great motor racing great driver, as Damon Hill's the son of a great ex-world champion Graham Hill, he will be very happy indeed. Charlie Whiting in the blue shirt, the FI Technical Delegate, but that is the man of the race, little Jacques Villeneuve. And John Clear, the first man to embrace him, is his race engineer. It's a team effort at Williams all the way, and the team effort shows most of all as Villeneuve is spoken to by Erwin Gollner, the team trainer, but the team effort most of all was between Villeneuve and Jock Clear, because they were the two that set up the car for it to go as well as it did, for it to qualify as well as it did, and for Jacques to take that superb first position at Silverstone. Well, he doesn't look too unhappy, does he? I said he was self-contained, and he is, but he's obviously a very happy man, as he talks quite calmly about what went on in only his 10th Grand Prix. So he's now had, in his short career, a pole position. He's had 2 wins. He's had 4 second places. He's had a 3rd position, and he made the fastest lap in the British Grand Prix. So that lifts his score of fastest laps to 4. And his World Championship points to 42 from only 10 Grand Prix. So the car's going to Parc Fermé now, where they are examined. The drivers have to be weighed. Martin Brundle will be getting on the scales. And they subtract the weight of the driver from the combined weight of the car and the driver to make sure that the car is not underweight. And Mika Salo was actually excluded from one of the races this year because he had a problem with the car and lost an enormous amount of oil, as a result of which, when his weight was taken away... There is Mika Salo, incidentally. There is Mika Salo. 7th position. He's just failed to get World Championship points. David Coulthard congratulates the winner. 5th position in the British Grand Prix. Coulthard. Tyrrell will probably be comparatively happy because, and you're looking now at Mika Häkkinen, although Ukko Katayama went out of the race on the 49th lap, they've had so many reliability problems, primarily with the engine in the Tyrrell team, that they'll be very happy to see Mika Salo up in that 7th position, just 1 place off the points. A World Championship point would have been a rich reward, but it was not to be. Drivers' Championship. Damon Hill leads, 15 points ahead of Jacques Villeneuve. 3rd position, Michael Schumacher, no points at Silverstone. He's now only 1 point ahead of Jean Alesi, as he was when this race began, because Alesi retired too. But we've got 3 drivers tying for 5th position. David Coulthard, Mika Häkkinen and Gerhard Berger. And in the Constructors' Championship, Williams are now quite incredible, 70 points. I think they're only about 30 points or so off clinching the Constructors' Championship very early in the season. Benetton are 2nd, and they're 6 points ahead of Ferrari, and McLaren are 3 points behind Ferrari in 4th position. Jordan are 5th, because they've scored twice in this race, and Ligier take that last position with 12 points in total. So up the steps of the John Brown Centre, Jimmy Brown, the Jimmy Brown Centre, named after the great secretary of the British Racing Drivers Club, who did so much to make Silverstone what it is today, go the leading finishers. Soon to appear in the interview room and tell us how they saw the race. But first of all, out onto the podium, for the champagne and the plaudits of the crowd. Not, one has to say, the most exciting British Grand Prix ever, but certainly a jolly interesting one.
Yes, I think the nice thing about the Grand Prix here is that it's certainly livened up the championship. And whilst I very much hope Damon Hill will go on to win, and I'm sure he will, certainly it's going to get closer because of the extra 10 points for the winner, Jacques Villeneuve.
48 points. Drivers very shortly should be making their way onto the podium.
And again, unless I'm very much mistaken, there will be a roar from the crowd, the sporting crowd, to greet the winner, Jacques Villeneuve, as he steps out onto the podium, followed by Gerhard Berger and Mika Häkkinen. 3 different constructors, 3 different, very different drivers.
Anthem of Canada. And now for the winning constructor, the British National Anthem for Williams.
And the British National Anthem, of course, for the winning Williams Constructors team. And the winner's trophy goes to Jacques Villeneuve, and it's handed over by His Royal Highness Prince Michael of Kent, who is the President of the Royal Automobile Club. And a delighted Jacques Villeneuve holds up the magnificent gold trophy, and Ian Lang, who is the President of the Board of Trade, gives the trophy for the winning constructor to Dickie Stanford, who's representing Williams. The second place trophy goes from the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Kenneth Clark, to Gerhard Berger from Austria. We saw his hands being bandaged, and he'll be happy to be back on the podium because he's only been there once this year. And an equally happy Mika Häkkinen gets his trophy from Kenneth Clark. So, from Canada, the winner. From Austria, the second place man. From Finland, the third position man. And it's a victory for the Williams team. It's a second place for the Benetton team. It's a third place for the McLaren team. An excellent race for McLaren, all in all, who continue their progress upwards, which has been pretty painful this year. But both their drivers finish in the top 5, thanks to David Coulthard being in that position. And the same thing can be said of Jordan. They continued their progress upwards with Rubens Barrichello 4th, with Martin Brundle in 6th position. And a good race therefore for Peugeot, who powered the 2 Jordans of Barrichello and Brundle. And the weather stayed good all through the British Grand Prix, and now The first three will go into the interview room, and we will be able to hear from all three of them in general, from, I'm sure, a pretty low key, Jacques Villeneuve in particular, how it was for them. And that is the first 10, as you can see. I've already given you the first 6 with confirmation that Barrichello, Coulthard and Brundle were the other 3 World Championship scorers. Mika Salo 7th, Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Herbert brought the 2 Sauber Fords home 8th and 9th. Verstappen finishes 10th for Arrows, and Giancarlo Fisichella takes 11th place, 2 laps down for Minardi Ford, who won't be unhappy because they get no testing at the Silverstone circuit by virtue of the fact that they're an Italian team and they have the Ford customer engine, which has much less power than the works cars here. But retirements from Alesi, from Parnish, from Pedro Diniz, from Damon Hill, from Pedro Lamy, from Ricardo Rosset, from Ukyo Katayama, Eddie Irvine and Michael Schumacher mean that in particular it has been another, sadly, and I really do not like saying this, a demeaning race for Ferrari. Whatever the reasons, it means that in the last 3 races they have had 6 failures to finish. Both of their drivers have failed to finish in France, in Canada before, and in Britain afterwards. So now the crowd will start to make their way home. It took them a long time to get in. It'll take them a long time to get out too.